48, decorated, admired, and days away from retirement before he ended his life. Lieutenant Colonel Hart was a Marine Corps officer, an executive officer. He served for 30 years, and he left behind his wife and 2 young kids. And there weren't signs, there wasn't a note, there wasn't some massive scandal. There was just a system running on overdrive for decades inside a culture that didn't allow it to slow down. And I know so many of you here can resonate with that because I've heard you share your stories. And this is what burnout looks like in the high achievers. It's way more than stress. It looks like a nervous system that has forgotten how to regulate itself, literally forgotten how, lost capacity to regulate itself inside a world where it's never been given permission to regulate, to come down. And this is what creates burnout. This is what creates crisis. This is the problem. And what most people will not tell high achievers is that often your discipline will become your downfall. Because when you know how to push through, you forget how to feel when you're falling apart. You disconnect. And before you know it, you can be too far gone. So what I want to share with you today is the solution. Because I too was a Marine Corps officer, serving in the Marine Corps in Iraq when I heard about Lieutenant Colonel Hart. And it was a wake-up call as I was on the same roller coaster of pushing through, like PhD style, pushing through. Who has a PhD and like making it hard, pushing through, like, yeah. And I was there, like badge of honor, wearing it. And this is why now what I do is I'm a high performance coach. I'm serving high achievers who have created tremendous success in their life, but at a huge cost, a cost of freedom, of health, of relationship, of fulfillment, of joy. Like you get to the top of the ladder and where the hell am I? What did I create? This doesn't work. And so the solution is all inside nervous system capacity. Because what I have found, I've been a coach for 20 years. I've coached hundreds, at this point, thousands of clients in supporting a shift inside themselves. But until I started to integrate a modality that supports capacity change in the nervous system, there was no real lifestyle change. So what I'm going to teach you today, and the journey that I lead my clients on, and you all get to experience later tonight, is how do we expand nervous system capacity? And it is not putting more bricks in the pack, right? It's not more mindfulness. It's not more meditation. It's not willpower. It's not discipline. If it were, you would have figured it out by now because you're a hard-ass group, right? That's not what it is. So I'm going to use the whiteboard, and we're going to look at the autonomic nervous system, right? So ANS. And everybody has learned about the nervous system, right? In school, we've all learned about the nervous system. And so up here, we're going to call this the sympathetic nervous system. All right, sympathetic. Down here, those are supposed to be straight lines. Pretend they are. Maybe we can edit them straight. Para. Sympathetic. Okay. So the sympathetic nervous system, what does it do? What's it known for? Fight or flight, totally. Yeah, what else? Well, it does during the day, like your automatic metabolism is run through your sympathetic nervous system. That's true, yeah. What else?
Faster heart rate, shallower breathing.
It can definitely create that, yeah. And see, notice a lot of what we're talking about is the negative side, like the negative side of the sympathetic nervous system. So that's true, and we're gonna talk a lot about that. But there's really healthy functionality of the sympathetic nervous system. So this is the sympathetic nervous system is where we learn how, like, why I'm even up here speaking in confidence, being able to project and be powerful, to exercise, like arousal, physical arousal happens from sympathetic nervous system. And so there's really, really good components inside the sympathetic nervous system or sympathetic tone, learning how to use it, that we need to be able to operate within. But the challenge is, and we'll get to it, is often sometimes we don't. So the sympathetic nervous system is kind of this up curve, right? Where we're learning arousal and confidence and projection, and I can show up on stage and I can go into the boardroom and I can lead the meeting. Sympathetic nervous system. And eventually I'm going to come home and it's time for me to down regulate, time for me to rest, recover, regenerate, sleep, cellular turnover. Some of you have talked about this today. I mean, it all happens when we're in a healthy parasympathetic space. Right? So this is the downside of the wave. And in an ideal nervous system, we're operating in between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. This is called the zone of, we call this the zone of active copeability. I normally have slides. So right here, is the zone of active copeability. And so this is sort of where we know how to elevate into sympathetic when we need to get things done, to accomplish a task. We can cope, and then we can come back down and we can rest, we can regenerate, heal. But here's what often happens. For high achievers, for high performers, for many entrepreneurs, which side of this cycle do you think is a challenge? Coming up into sympathetic, rising, getting it done? No, totally right here, right? This is usually where we struggle, is inside coming back down. Because what happens is we get stuck above the line. And so when we come above the line, we end up in a spiral, and this is actually what it feels like in your system. When a nervous system is no longer functioning at full health, it forgets how to recover, how to down-regulate. And so we actually can get stuck in this elevated cycle. And so we start to spin. We don't sleep, right? We are always on. Like, we think it has to be hard, so I'm going to make it hard. A lot of this exists in stories, and we'll get to that, like who you think you have to be. But we come above the line, and we can really get stuck here. This is absolutely where fight or flight lives, right? So fight, flight. And these are stress responses. So up here is a stress response. We'll call it the sympathetic stress response. And this is parasympathetic stress response. And so what typically happens is we're up here, we're in fight or flight, we're on, we're not sleeping, we're go, 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 go. If we can't stay there, because typically we can't, we might medicate to stay there. We might use caffeine, we might use drugs. We'll stay there as long as we can. And the thing about high achievers is they can actually stay there a really long time. Like, I'm talking decades. A long ass time. Your discipline sometimes becomes your downfall, right? Because I know how to suck it up and make it hard. And now listen, there's a time you got to be here. I've been in combat twice. There is a time where it's healthy and needed to jump above the healthy sympathetic and be like, you know what? I got to go to war right now. I got to do this thing. But inside running a business, we're not at war. So if we're getting stuck up here, something is wrong. And what's wrong is the nervous system has forgotten how to recover. Because up here, we start to produce a higher amount of cortisol and endorphins and adrenaline, and literally it starts to create change in our body. And so what will happen is we start to see rigidity in the system. This is where disease comes from, that some of you were talking about. When we are stuck in this always on, it literally turns into rigid tightness inside the body. It turns inflammation signals on. All disease comes from inflammation. All disease comes from inflammation. And the inflammation, a lot of it, I mean, there's many things that cause inflammation, but a lot of it is this internal stuckness. And so what will happen is eventually we get stuck here. We get stuck here, and right, the rigidity shows up. My writing is a little bit sloppy, but we get stuck here until we have a complete collapse, because we don't know how to come back down in a healthy way. We don't know how to down regulate. And so this turns into a complete collapse. So parasympathetic collapse. This is where there's no motivation. We become hopeless. There's no purpose. There's no drive. There's no power, and you are literally stuck. This is where suicide happens. People get depressed, they're hopeless, they're lost, and this is where the end shows up. And it's not their fault. It's that there is a nervous system that is stuck, literally stuck, and does not know how. It has forgotten how to come back into the flow, which is right here. Let's make it blue. The flow. I call the flow like the genius zone. And this is where we have capacity to take healthy action. We can create this idea into a movement. We can enroll people into our idea, but we know how to ask for help, because I don't have to jump into it has to be hard. I am the only one that can do it. It's not safe to ask for help. Like, I don't have to jump up here. I can stay in flow. I can ask for support. I can take the action, and then I can regenerate. I can stay in health. And true power comes from this space. This is where true power comes from, that is sustainable, to create the movement that you're here to create. And so without learning how to stay inside this functional range, without really mastering the flow state, you're not going to be able to create the movement that you want to create, because you will run out of gas. We're finite beings with finite energy, and this is a requirement. So I want to open it up, because this is intended to be teaching as well. So perhaps, I don't know, maybe we can edit this out. But I want to open it up for questions or comments, because I want to see how this is landing for everybody.
This is a comment. Most people think of stress as a negative thing, but there's eustress, EU, which is positive stress, and distress, which is negative stress. And harnessing the positive stress is good, and coping with the negative stress is also good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is good stress. Like, I got to get my taxes done. I don't like that, but it feels stressful. IRS gets on me if I don't do it, and it does drive some action. So knowing how to use it and stay in functional range is important. Yeah. What else? Yeah. That's a great question. Ideally, the ideal situation is you would never really have to go above the line. Like, if you need to, I did use combat as an example. So that's a little bit of an extreme example that most people aren't going to have. Like, there are times where a circumstance is going to exceed our capacity to manage it. And dissociation happens when that's the case. When we're out of skill set, we don't have capacity, we don't have support, then we're going to dissociate. A lot of dissociation is up here, but it's also down here. Dissociation happens at both ends of the spectrum. So if we dissociate and we jump above the line, but we're met with support, the right support, then we can, but you're going to need support. If you get above or below the line, you need support usually to come back into regulation. So you just would have the right support. Somebody who knows nervous system, somebody who knows trauma, and can actually support you back into regulation, because your capacity will expand. And so the need to dissociate, fight, flight, flee, or fawn, which is another stress response that I didn't talk about, you won't necessarily have to go into those. So ideally, your nervous system is going to be able to stay right here.
It's not like there's a set number, like blood pressure, where this is healthy and this isn't. So, for example, running, you know, distance running, you're in a sympathetic area, and that could be good, but you're balancing it with other things. So you're above the line, and then,
Yeah.
Go walking in the woods.
Follow up. So that makes sense. So, like, if with training, we could actually increase our capacity, right? And so with you being combat, you've been trained, so you increase your capacity under high pressure situations. But when you go over, that's where PTSD generally tends to happen. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. PTSD 100% lives up here, because what happens inside flow state, it's all about capacity of the nervous system. So capacity of nervous system, but also capacity to complete, like nervous system completion. And that's usually a missing link in PTSD. So we have a traumatic experience. And if that traumatic experience is met with support and somebody who knows how to allow us to feel the emotion all the way through, the emotion is like a wave. And so to feel the emotion all the way through and allow the support to be there, to validate that, wow, that was hard. Tell me how it felt. You feel it in your body. If it can move all the way through, then you're expanding your nervous system. Safety is a prerequisite to this expansion happening, and completion of the experience, nervous system completion. So both of those need to happen.
I've got a question. Can you give an example of parasympathetic stress?
Parasympathetic stress. So what do you mean by that? Oh, well, when we're a stress response. So when you're like in a parasympathetic stress response, this means that we're below the line. So parasympathetic is when we come down and we rest, we digest, we heal. But when we've gone below the line, there's a total collapse. So this looks like depression, like I can't get out of bed, like I'm sleeping, but I'm not recovering. I'm sleeping all day, but I'm still tired. So chronic fatigue that a lot of people have talked about. So that would be the parasympathetic stress response that isn't healthy. And honestly, that's the most dangerous place, because it's inevitable. If we've gotten stuck in this cycle, it's inevitable that eventually that collapse will happen. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. You stop being able to digest, right? So weight gain often happens here. Physical pain happens here. It does, the gut microbiome starts to change. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
It says his greatest wish. They not try to make life easier for their kids, but to recognize, if you can, just like Emma was saying, if you can be there with your kid while they're suffering and just present with them so they can experience the full range of the emotion, like you said, that grows the soul, which is what you're saying. It expands their capacity just to be with life and be with themselves.
Yeah.
He was like, that was his greatest wish for parents, is don't try to save them from suffering, but be there with them. And it's growing the soul is expanding the nervous system capacity, like you're talking about. Like, it's all linking up.
Totally. And I think there's a great way to connect this when we think about child rearing, right? Like where does one learn how to be in flow? Because we could just learn flow as a child and stay here and never have to get above or below the line. But that would happen if we fall, imagine little Susie falls and hurts her knee, and she's 5, and that's scary, and it hurts, and she runs to mom crying. But mom meets her with, oh, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Everything's fine. Stop crying. I'll put a Band-Aid on it. Like, you're okay. Everything's fine. And so what she's done there, she hasn't allowed little Susie to complete her emotional cycle. And so what does Susie learn? Okay, it's not safe to feel. I need to suck it up. I need pain is normal. Like I just need to not ask for help when something is hard or hurts. And this is what she learns. And so literally her nervous system is learning that here. And the nervous system is programmed in infancy and childhood. By five, you're programmed. Like your brain and your nervous system are programmed. And that's like baby T trauma, right? So a lot of people I work with, it's all about trauma. We all have trauma, but like some of it's like this little like baby T trauma. Like I was crying in bed for hours and mom never came. Maybe mom was sleep training, but what the child is remembering is I'm not safe. I'm crying for help and nobody comes. So who do I have to be? I have to be hard. I have to be like battle hardened. I have to take care of myself. Asking for help doesn't solicit support.
What I love is like a baby falls and looks up to see whether she should cry.
Totally.
Or, like, oh, no big deal.
Exactly, because they're looking for that support. And so like if we were to use that, like Susie falls, she looks up, she's like, it hurts. She's crying. And mom runs to her and says, oh, come here. I'm so sorry. I know that hurt. That really hurt. And it makes sense that you're crying right now. I'm sorry. Let me hold you. It's safe. I'm so glad that you came to me. You're safe. And you just hold her and you let her have that experience. Eventually, just like the wave, she comes up, she's crying, she might be hyperventilating, it really hurts. But mom is holding her, validating her experience. She has physical touch, oxytocin is produced, she's feeling safe, and then the wave naturally comes down. Nervous system completion has been modeled. And so she never learned that she had to come up above the line or below, pretend everything is fine and pretend that I'm not hurting. She learned how to have a healthy, regulated nervous system. And so if that wasn't our childhood, if that wasn't our life, or we've had big T trauma where there's been assault or war or deaths, then we already know that we likely have programming that has put us here. And this programming isn't changed in conversation. So like even this education here is helpful, but it's not gonna create transformation. It's experiential work, and I'll get to that is gonna create the transformation.
So
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in the beginning, it's a disciplined daily practice. If you're stuck here, and it literally is what happens, it's rigidification. So we get literally stuck in that spiral, and the system is stuck. So it's not like we're not going to think our way out of it. We're not going to breathe our way out of it. We're not going to meditate our way out of it. But we are going to use those tools to start regulating, like creating regulation and safety. Safety is requirement, and usually safety in relationship, which is why having a therapist or a coach who is trauma informed and nervous system informed really, really does matter. Because as the body can land back in safety, like Susie that fell and was told to suck it up, buttercup, it's all fine, stop crying, I'll put a Band-Aid on it, run off and play. Her body is remembering it's not safe to feel, I have to be hard, I have to be on. And we have to retrain that part of you, which is somatic. So it really comes back to somatic intelligence, which is where this energy lives and where the memories live. And so inside the right support, you learn and we give that healthy completion that your emotions needed. And sometimes you need support with that, but eventually you'll be able to give yourself that. Totally completing the emotional cycle, allowing yourself to feel the emotion and be with it. So there are some tools that I teach, and we can talk more about that, like that you can take away. Maybe at the end of tonight, I can share that. like what it looks like to practice this on a daily basis, because in the beginning it does need to be a new tool that we're training our system.
In comparison, I understand the rigidity and the collapse.
Mm-hmm.
But what are other things? Is it trauma? Is it an accident? Is it something big that causes you to dip? Or is it only you've been living there so long and you go below? I want to know. I understand the top line. I want to understand the bottom line a little bit more.
So what would cause the dip?
That you dip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not always a complete crash. Like some people actually learn to live here. I'm focusing on this because I'm talking to high achievers and entrepreneurs, and this is most likely where people can resonate. But somebody who learned, like, it really isn't safe for me to ask for help. Like, it really isn't safe. People are not there for me. And even if it was delayed or intermittent gratification, like sometimes my parents were there, but sometimes they weren't. That really can create a pattern where dissociation is the safest thing to do. And dissociation usually takes us down here. So addiction can be both places. Yeah. Yeah. And it usually always goes along with the cycle, because we'll be in the cycle and eventually, like, we can't get up and stay up. And so we're going to medicate, we're going to use uppers, we're going to use caffeine, but then we can't come down. And literally we can't. Like, hormones change. GABA is produced that helps us sleep and helps us recover. And when you're stuck up here, GABA turns off. You're in a hyper stress response, GABA's gone. And so you literally can't come back down. But guess what gives you a temporary hit of GABA? Alcohol. So you drink alcohol and you're feeling a little bit of GABA. It's temporary, and it always sends you below the line. Like excessive sugar, alcohol, like addictive habits will take us too high, and then we come back down too low because we're compensating with external things. Yeah.
I found this place it's a cold plunge, super cold, and then there's a hot tub. And there's an infrared sauna, and I want to go back to this place and be there all the time. And I'll do breath work in the cold plunge. Can you use this diagram to help explain what is going on with my nervous system and why do I want to keep doing this?
Yeah. So cold plunge is a great way to expand nervous system if you do it with love, rather than like, I'm going to jump in and I can do it, right? Which is what some people do. But like, if you really can like do it in a loving way and be in the sensation of it, it's expanding your flow. Does that make sense? Yeah. All of it, because the sauna is a stress. It's a eustress. Like, your heart rate goes up, your heat goes up, your body is saying, this is dangerous. I'm exceeding healthy body temperature. So you're creating stress, but you're also knowing I'm safe. I'm actually safe. And so in that exact experience, you're expanding capacity because you're putting stress in the system, but inside a safe environment, you're not really at threat. So you actually are expanding, and this expansion feels really good. And when we do that consistently, it does expand capacity. Exercise does the same thing. So like with a lot of my clients, I prescribe exercise because exercise is a tremendous way to put stress in the system, get sympathized, get up here, get active, and then endorphins, which feel really good. And then the body knows how to come back down from exercise, and we usually can let it come back down from exercise. So again, we're expanding that capacity. We'll do 2 more questions. Yeah. Yeah. The second, right? Because expanding capacity means that I no longer have to jump above the line and really where this comes in is deeper trauma work, where the patterns are created. Because Susie, who didn't get the help and learns I have to like scream for help and it never comes and I'm going to be hard, or let me just be silent and not show up. Like that's where it's learned. And so as that's unlearned and I relearn it's safe to ask for support, it's safe to ask for help, then I'm expanding capacity because I don't need to go above the line. I'm giving myself new tools to stay in flow. Does that answer the question? Okay.
Can I share
Yeah.
my experience?
Yeah.
So I've been working with them for now 6 months maybe. And in doing the trauma work with her, you actually got to witness me in my own talk today, in the moment where I was talking about bringing up the trauma from my childhood. I wasn't crying because I was experiencing it, what I was experiencing trauma necessarily. I was really remembering the moment with you when I remembered the trauma. And in that moment, I was, from what I'm working with Emma, I was able to have that conversation with myself of accepting it. And so I took that moment to do that. And that's where the support comes in, where we could maybe do some of this, but until I really tapped into the full support of when I'm in that high point, that's when I really am learning to do this at a place that is keeping me in that zone of the active vulnerability.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Jay.
Well, I'll share my experience too. So I'm also working with Emma and doing the modality that we're going to be doing after dinner. And I can just say that like I'm a person like who has had a lot of I attract a lot of healer clients and they all want to experiment on me. They want to give me a free whatever. And I'm constantly being asked like, well, where do you feel this in your body or what colors do you see? And I'm like, I got nothing like that. I just can't access that. And Emma is helping me along that path, which ultimately is around intuition and recognizing what the hell that is. Because all my life I've not been able to do that, and it's a process, but I'm getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Intuition, like what Tammy talked on, is only in the flow state. You will not be able to access intuition here or here. And that's why life in the flow state gets easy. Like you can create massive success effortlessly. It gets easy. You start Shiraz was talking about, Lord Shiraz was talking about this capacity to manifest or stand in the future before it's there. And that happens again in flow state. Because what trauma really does, trauma is not actually the thing that happened. It's not that I lost my parent. It's not that I was abused. It's not that I was told I was fat or told that I can't sing and I should keep my mouth shut. Those are hurtful and traumatizing moments, but that's not the trauma. The trauma is that because of it, I disassociate. I disconnect from my essence. I stop trusting myself, and I live now outside of the zone. And I get stuck there. That's trauma. And so when we can support you in embodiment, the reason embodiment is a critical tool is because it brings you back into connection with your essence, your feeling, your intuition, your trusting yourself. This is where you grow your capacity for confidence and power, like true power here in the flow state. Yeah. So
What H.E. was talking
Ooh,
about, if you're one person, you're enough, and then movement. When I was in medical school, the treatment for ulcers was cutting the vagus nerve and part of the stomach. And everybody thought that's the way you do it.
well, prefrontal lobotomy was a thing too.
Yeah.
Like, so we've tried lots of things.
Everybody said some guy thought it was bacteria in the stomach. And people said, oh, it's too acidic an environment. Bacteria can't live there.
Yeah.
And this guy, who nobody listened to, showed that Helicobacter pylori is what causes ulcers and treated with antibiotics instead of surgery.
Yeah. Evolution in medicine has been pretty amazing. And I think what I'm loving the most is evolution back to the truth that our body knows exactly how to heal itself. Our body knows exactly how to regenerate, and that's proven. Like, cellular turnover is happening, but it only happens inside the regulated state. We're not healing our body here and here. We're killing it slowly. So there's a few different phases. I know I'm 5 minutes over, so I'm gonna like wrap it up here. One of the ways, there's four main pillars to this work that I do. Nervous system is one. It's a huge one. It's what I've talked about here. And tonight I'm going to support you inside an experience that really helps build and expand your nervous system capacity. The second pillar is your brain patterning. And brain patterning starts to change once nervous system is changing. So now it's safe to take new action in the world and create endorphins and dopamine from those actions and build new pathways, right? So the brain patterning can change. Like, you got up on stage today for the first time. You're changing your brain patterns. It's happening. Like, in this courage to take action. And as AG said, it's only in taking action that the movement is ever created. So that's the second pillar. The third pillar is meridians, right? Like Chinese medicine. Because what happens right in trauma, we dissociate, we disconnect from our body, and then the energy of emotion can't move through the body. We have stagnation, physical stagnation in the body. And so that's another really important pillar of my work, is how do we open up the meridians? How do we open up flow? So your chi, your prana, your life force, your divinity can flow through you and do all the healing, do all the work. I'm not a healer at all. I'm just a safe space for your light to start shining bright. And the fourth pillar, which is super interesting, is epigenetics and ancestral lineage, which is where a lot of the imprints live. They're not all cognitive, and they're not all this lifetime, and they're not, a lot of them, going to be in your brain and in your memory. But when we start doing this work, your body will remember, and some of that will come out. So in closing, the big takeaway here is that you're here with a huge vision, you're here with a huge purpose, and you don't want to shrink to that capacity. You want to rise, you want to expand your capacity of your nervous system to reach the level of your vision and your mission. And that's the way that you make it a reality in the world. So thank you.